You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
But when you look back at the 2024 defense, statistically, or being objective, there's really no category they were good in. They were either mediocre or bottom of the ACC in pretty much all the categories that matter. Keep in mind in the ACC, in football, there are 17 teams. And these stats I'm about to tell you are out of 17. Just want to point that out there. So when I say, hey, Syracuse was 12th in this category, I don't want you thinking 12th in the country. I want you thinking 12th in the ACC out of 17 teams. Scoring defense, allowing points on the board. They gave up about 29 points per game. That was bottom 5 in the conference. Total yards, they were 12th in the ACC. Total rush yards allowed, they were bottom 5 in the ACC. Average rush yards allowed per carry, they were worst in the conference. Total pass defense, they were actually pretty good. They were 9th in the ACC. They were also mediocre in sacks, in takeaways, and in red zone defense. So overall, there's a ton of room to grow for this defense in 2025. I do understand that the personnel is vastly different from a year ago. But having said that, we would still like the defense from last year to be better. Just as a team, we want it to be better because they weren't the greatest a year ago. And I don't necessarily think that the offense, like it did a year ago, is going to be as effective as it was. It was like the number one offense in the country. If they become a top 25 offense, that's still regression. And that would still be awesome. So the defense needs to be better to make up for the fact that the offense is probably due for some sort of regression from a year ago. The good news with the defense is this. There was only one game from last season where I felt that the defense was just outmatched. And it's a game where I don't think you're expecting me to say. Boston College. The defensive line in particular, the linebackers, everything. Pass defense was fine in that game, but they were manhandled against Boston College. That was the one game I looked at and I said, my goodness, that was awful, that Boston College game. And to be honest with you, I mean, what do you do? If you're just getting bullied up front, I don't know what you do. How do you solve that? How do you solve getting bullied up front? They were stacking guys in the box. It didn't matter. There was nothing they could do in that day against Boston College. But every other game, it felt that the story of the defense throughout last season was more self-inflicted wounds. And you can correct self-inflicted wounds. They struggled to tackle at times a year ago. In fact, last season, they began against Ohio with 19 missed tackles. 19. They also took bad angles at times, which can be corrected. Deuce Chestnut, he'll be back this upcoming season. Sticks out to me a couple of plays against Georgia Tech in week 2 against Haynes King. Took some bad angles, led to touchdowns. Also, Haynes King broke a couple of tackles for one of his touchdowns in that game against Georgia Tech in week 2. I think it was Derek McDonald missed like a sack or something and led to a 30-yard touchdown in that one. Or it's mental mistakes where it's Jaden Bellamy, who will not be back this upcoming season. I believe he transferred to UCF. He left Noah Rogers of NC State just wide open in the fourth quarter of the Syracuse NC State game. Just wide open for a 75-yard touchdown. Those are self-inflicted wounds. And the overall point that I'm making with the defense is that one game I felt they were manhandled. Every other game I felt with the defense, it was mostly self-inflicted wounds. Or it was sometimes bad coaching, like with Stanford and Alec Iomanor one-on-one on that fourth down play. That's just bad coaching. Can't be one-on-one, can't be rushing 3 and dropping 8. Just can't happen. But overall, I think that this defense can improve. Even with a tougher schedule. I think they left some meat on the bone from last season. And so I do think that they will be better at cleaning up some of the self-inflicted wounds from last season. Look, if a first-round wide receiver on Clemson or whatever, if Antonio Williams gets open and he beats someone one-on-one, or even if you double team him and he beats you, so be it. That just can happen sometimes. There sometimes can be talent gaps, or you get manhandled by the Notre Dame front. I don't know what to tell you, but you know what? They can clean up self-inflicted wounds. They can clean up wrapping up ball carriers. They can clean up taking better angles, and they can clean up mental errors. They can do all that this upcoming season. They're not going to be perfect, but I do think they will be better in 2025 compared to 2024.